Yeah, so we are live, and hey everyone, I hope you are all having a great time. And we have attendees coming up. I think we have a bunch of them. So thanks for tuning into the live session. And today we have Avi Press, and he's the founder of Scarf. And it's a great tool, and we'll be talking about it as well. And he has a tons of experience in building open source projects and also building functional apps integrations and with the big firms. So he will share his view on building uh, healthy communities. We'll be talking about usage analytics of open source projects, like how you can use the data to actually make use for something profitable, right? So that's the whole idea. And yeah, so uh, Avi, over to you, and you can share about yourself, like how you actually started your journey and what you're working right now.
Yeah, great. Well, hello everyone. Thanks for having me. Let's see. So I myself have been an open source maintainer of a few different projects, mainly ones that I was building myself just at work, like for developer tools that would just help me do my job day to day. Over time, some of those tools started to pick up some steam and had contributors and people at big companies that were using them. But I didn't really know how they were using them. I just kind of would get those occasional. I would get people coming to me on GitHub saying with this bug or that bug, and I would look at their profile, maybe at like Adobe or something. And so there was clear, it was clear to me during that time that the tools that I was writing were providing value to companies, but I didn't really know anything beyond that. I didn't know how much they were relying on it, how many people were actually using these tools, because they were mostly command line tools. Like one was an integration testing framework, and one was a tool that would basically scan your code base for all the to-dos in your code, and you can basically visualize them in a dashboard and edit them and stuff. And so I was distributing these tools on package managers like Hackage, it was a Haskell CLI, and Docker, it was a Docker container. And all I would get was that total download count. And so that basically, that lack of data made even making the decision of should I pursue this and try to maybe build a business around these tools? It's a pretty tough call to make. You're not really informed if you actually take that plunge to go do that. Even though I didn't have that data, I decided, you know what, I'm getting enough, inbound requests from people that are at big companies that I think there's an opportunity here. But when I went to actually go try to do that, it was really, really difficult, for, so many different reasons. I didn't know who to go talk to. I didn't know, which companies actually relied on it heavily versus people that were just trying it out and playing with it. And so ultimately, I did a lot of work to try to monetize my tools, but it was not a very successful endeavor. And I just thought, I was thinking really deeply about what the actual problems were and what would have made me more successful. And really what I kind of pinned the problem down to is just that the way I was distributing my software was not amenable to the kind of commerce that I wanted to do. I wanted to sell licenses to the software. Package managers today don't give you that data. And even if they did, how would you actually sell something? If you distribute an NPM package, you can't upsell to some different thing. It's just all on NPM and it's all just out there. So what do you do? Yeah. And so, after thinking through that, I began working on Scarf, and Scarf essentially is a business that tries to help open source maintainers have better data about how their software is used and have more control over the distribution channel, so they can, just build more successfully, maintain more proactively, and build businesses around their work, especially when they provide value to big companies.
That's great. So basically, so you're trying to say that these package managers take all the data, but we only get to see the number of downloads, even the maintainers. But right now, with the help of Scarf, you're having control of your whole distribution, where the things are getting used and the deep analytics of your own project, right? So that's really great, and that's nice. And you talked about the community health aspect of how you can scale, like how you can monitor the community health and manage the community efficiently because of that metric. So can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you talk about the current like community health analytics for open source today, you really are typically talking about things like contributors, issues and stars, and like that's kind of all you have to work with. But the thing is, for any successful open source project, that's actually really a small portion of the activity, because there's probably a lot of people using the software just silently. You'll never hear about it. You'll never know about it. And so basically, like, our thesis here is that your community is a lot more than just the people that like send you code and star your project on GitHub. There's so much else going on. And so by not having a good handle on the usage metrics, you're actually missing like some of the most important pieces of your community. And so, like one of the, I think one of the things that sheds a lot of light on this is that like we open source developers are like, some of the most technologically sophisticated people around. Like, we're the stuff building the software that the world is running on. And when you look at how we collect data to make decisions about our project, the state of the art, historically has been you send out a survey to your users. And that's the best we can do, which is fundamentally crazy. And when you look at, a lot of people want to just, grow their community, get more people involved. Well, one thing that we have, been really trying to innovate on is, having a better understanding of which companies are pulling this stuff down. You have a lead to go to say like, oh, hey, we see that you're using the project, like, would love for you to get involved, or, do you need any help? Or, there's a lot of things that you can do, but you at least have something to work with. You have something to start with, rather than just kind of waiting for people to come to you. You can actually be more proactive. And personally, I think that was one of the most exhausting things about maintaining an open source project. Personally, was just that I felt like I was always just being reactive to whatever was coming in, but I could never really get ahead of it. And so I think, like, for the, just for the sanity of maintainers, allowing them to like make decisions in a more proactive way and to actually, try to build their community in a way that they can be informed is actually just makes our lives a lot easier and better.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's true. When it comes to closed source projects, they monitor a lot of things, like when it comes to from distribution to the production, everything is controlled and everything is well monitored, and that's how they're making money and they're building communities, right? And they are getting the enough traction and enough benefit of what they are trying to do. So when it comes to open source, like, we only get stars and then, the number of folks and who is working, who are the contributors. And these are the limited metrics which open source is evolving till today. But that's really a great innovation, and I like the the thought process of which you have come through. Like, why not we monitor, like, not really monitor, like, having control on someone else's data. That's not our direction, but it's for the own benefit for the community, and the development of the communities is what your focus is. And I really love that direction as well, because I have seen a lot of the blogs, and I was going through some of the blogs written, this monitoring is not really required for open source, because these are the things which are misunderstood, like this direction of like, people who are in the community can really understand like why this is needed, but someone who is outside and who is inactive in the community will come up with these kind of questions. So what message you want to give to them, like, who are saying that, hey, these metrics are not needed, but what message you want to convey to them?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I would say. So one is that that data can help get you better software for free, for not doing anything. If you have more better informed maintainers, you're going to get higher quality software. Like, that's just a win for you. And the second thing that I would say is that this data already exists. Like the data, the package registries already have all of this data. The only problem is they don't share it with the maintainers, which is kind of the fundamental thing that's broken here. And so with the addition of something like Scarf into the open source community broadly, the only change is that the people building the software have a better idea here. But like the data, NPM already has this data on you, Docker, GitHub, they already have that information because you're pulling that. You got to pull that software down from somebody. And so I think like there's just like a pragmatic argument here to make that like, yes, this needs to be done responsibly. Yes, this needs to be done with care and, with intention. But if we all work together to do this in a safe and secure and private way, everyone benefits from it. And that's what we're trying to do. And so, I think from Scarf's perspective, like we've gone through a ton of effort to make sure that we, scrub person identifiable information from our databases once we process metadata, and do, jump through lots of hoops to make sure that privacy is intact. But overall, this is the kind of thing that there's no new data being collected. It's just the way that the data is being leveraged. And I think the last point that I would make is that, we espouse the benefits of collaboration in a lot of ways in open source. Like, we want to work together. We want to help make each other successful. But for some reason, that philosophy of openness has kind of stopped right at the code. And so what we're arguing is like, no, like, look, if you're open about the usage data, like look at all the benefits that has. If you're open about how you can leverage that data and how it's being used, like look at all the great benefits that has. And so we really are trying to push the boundaries of what open means here, and to extend it, but extend it in a practical way and extend it in a careful way. And when done carefully, we're arguing this can be done very successfully.
Right. That's really that really makes sense, and I hope that helps everyone who wants to understand these things and who are getting started into open source. And how particularly this your project Scarf helps in improving the health of community? What is the one-liner, or you can say like particularly how Scarf deals with improving the whole health of the community?
In a one-liner.
Yeah, I mean, even you can describe about it. You can talk more about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the high-level thing here is that we're trying to enable maintainers to proactively convert end users, people who are silently using the product, and convert them into active community participants, contributors, customers. And, by actually being able to go to them and say like, hey, we'd love for you to, jump into our Slack or whatever that might look like. And I would say that's kind of the fundamental thing here, by helping people be more proactive. But then the second point that I would also want to include is just that we're helping maintainers be more informed and make better decisions for their community.
Yeah.
If people are saying, oh, we need Windows support, or we need, a different platform support, well, how are you going to assess if that's worth your time?
Yeah.
The data is what's going to help you do that.
Yeah.
And that's I'd say just better decision making by maintainers for their communities.
That's right.
Yeah.
So connecting to this whole discussion, right? So there are a few questions that are coming up. So we'll take up that as we go through. So like there are a lot of projects which don't want to move into commercial right now, and by taking like there are few open source maintainers are getting inspired by seeing the commercial benefits of open source. Like they can really make money by doing what they love, which was not possible a few years ago, but now it's getting real, right? So, so how do you build a sustainable business model or a business using these analytics?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's, I think it's still not something that I want to say we've like fully cracked the case on. Like there's still a lot of open problems in commercializing open source. But I think, we think that this, the ownership of the distribution channel here is kind of a very fundamental piece of it, because if you don't have control over the way that you provide your product to the customer, well, your ability to value capture on that distribution is nothing. You can't. And so, the idea being here that if the current tool chain by which we're distributing software to one another also kind of was amenable to these kinds of strategies, like selling a license right in line with the package manager, offering support contracts directly from the place where you're getting the code from, like that's a very powerful idea. And so the way that Scarf is going about this is first starting with that distribution channel and the data, and basically just try to help illuminate leads. Basically, like if oh, Apple is using my library very heavily, that's really interesting to know. We'll help you find the right people at that company and connect you with them, so you can maybe sell a support contract, those kinds of things. And so I think the idea here is that this is basically your usage. The usage of your software is lead generation. The usage of your open source software is leads to sell your products and services. And so whether that's licenses or custom features or consulting or support, whatever that looks like, by having that visibility into the usage, it unlocks all of these opportunities. And our goal is to help Scarf users execute on those opportunities once they've found them. And so, I think one of the really cool things here is that we've even had people that use Scarf that actually just had no commercial ambitions whatsoever. They were just like, I just would like some better stats. And they're like, oh, there's actually a ton of companies using this. And it kind of whets the appetite to even think about it, which is great. But, I think the reason that platforms like this, like Aviyel and Scarf and all these other projects are really important, I think, is just kind of normalizing this as a practice that it used to be looked down upon to try to commercialize open source. And now what we're saying is look, if you provide value to companies, you should get paid, period. And that's okay. That shouldn't be controversial anymore. And I think by and large, it's less and less controversial over time. But that doesn't mean it's easy to do. And so by building all these pieces and by having these companies that are, kind of working together to solve different pieces of this puzzle, we'll really start to move the needle for maintainers around the world. And that means we'll have better software for everybody. And that's a win for us all.
That's true. I really like the statement, that's a puzzle for real, because I've seen a lot of people who are making this thing controversial, but apart from that, we are looking at the value aspect of things, like how much value you can actually get and how much you actually missed before, right? So we are trying to regain it and trying to improve the whole community, and that's the whole point. And there are cases where I know everybody has their own story, challenges. So what were the major challenges you faced in the entire journey of building Scarf?
Oh man, so many. So, the tool chain that Scarf has today, the main thing that we do is called Scarf Gateway, and it's basically like a redirect and proxy layer that will sit in front of your registry, wherever you're hosting your software from. But the first thing that I built was actually a system package manager that would basically collect all the analytics from you would see the exit codes and the flags that were passed to your command line app and everything. And you could basically purchase the ability to have it lifted. And I launched that, and some maintainers were like, oh, it's kind of interesting, but I needed to get all my users to use Scarf now. It's not really going to be super, that's not going to work very well. And so that didn't really take off right away. And, we learned to make this, we have to make this really, really easy for maintainers to do. And can't be a whole thing for their users. And so then we moved on to, I was hearing this from a lot of JavaScript developers of I just want to know what companies use my software. That's all I want to know. Just tell me what companies are involved. And so I wrote this library called Scarf.js. And all it did was it fired off a post installation hook, which would just send a little bit of data to us after your package got installed and you depended on Scarf. And that actually really took off for a while. But then ran into end user pushback because they didn't like that there was like a phoning home mechanism in their npm install, which is totally fair. And so, what we've really, I'd say like one of the difficulties here, what I'm kind of summing up here, is kind of navigating how we can collect analytics in a way that end users are actually okay with. And like one of the things that we learned on the way there was like, we have to fit into people's expectations about when data could be captured. And so that was actually a huge surprise for us because we weren't like collecting any additional information NPM didn't collect. So our thinking was like, this should be fine, but it wasn't fine at all. People hated it. Maintainers loved it, but end users did not. And so with our latest tools with Scarf Gateway and we have documentation insights as well, which is pixel tracking for docs. It fits into people's mental models of like when they might be having data collected and like it fitting into their, all their expectations already. Like that has been a huge insight for us. So I would say like, the real difficulty here is just kind of navigating the social people's opinions, end user opinions, and kind of the web of history in open source and how we got here, and fitting into that, and not trying to go in and just disrupt it so aggressively that like it just doesn't take off. I would say is the really hard part. And then the last thing I would say is just that our system is actually quite technical to like sit in front of arbitrary registries and be fast around the world and stuff. And so we've actually had to solve some pretty hard technical problems as well, which has been pretty fun too. But I'm less and less a part of that as time goes on now that I'm kind of in the CEO role. I don't get to code too much these days, but I get to live vicariously through my team.
Totally understandable. That really answers the question. And also like when you started building Scarf or any open source project, like how many people work together like dedicatedly, and who was your major inspiration, if there was any, like a mentor or anyone like that?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, I would say like I definitely had mentors at work, like in my professional life, but I didn't really have too much in the open source space, to be honest. I was working at this company called Pandora, which I don't know if they weren't really in India, but like a music streaming company. And I had a really, really great mentor there who like, I started as a software engineering intern and like went all the way up to a senior software engineer there, and like had so much help and handholding from him. And like, it made such a big difference for when I actually went into open source. I was like, a much, much better engineer just as a result of his help. His name was JJ. But when it came to the open source stuff, I was kind of just building tools for myself and just sharing them. And so at first, like for my first project, the integration testing framework, I only had a couple contributors at first. There were like, like 5 of them or something. And it was only some like one-off patches. But then over time, I had more and more help as people were contributing more and more significant things. And then my second project for the to-do code scanning, I think I probably had like 15 contributors or something like that by kind of the end. And then, which was really, really cool. Like having even one contributor is awesome. It's a really cool feeling that first time, and it doesn't get old. But what does get old is all the complaints and all the like, your shit is broken and you need to fix it. And like, we have all these demands of you. That gets old immediately. But having people come and chip in is just like, it's the best. And it got me hooked on open source in the first place. So,
That's great. That's really inspiring. And, there are a few questions, I guess maybe we can take up that before we close it in a few minutes. So the first question is, how do you handle data privacy with Scarf?
Great question. Yeah, it's a common one and it's a good one. So the main thing that we do to like handle data privacy, especially with respect to GDPR, is that as soon as we look up metadata about an IP address, we delete it everywhere in our system, from logs, from databases, all that stuff. And so we can't really, like, if someone were to hack us, there wouldn't really be any private information to really get because we don't even have it, which is kind of a really key thing. And it was not trivial to build. I would say that's the main thing. And then the second thing is that from a legal standpoint, like we are the data processor with respect to GDPR. We're not the data controller. And so we're basically like acting on behalf of our users. And so it's possible that there could be users that like are not legally, they have no legal basis for using Scarf perhaps, but that's very uncommon, I would say, in that case. And so typically I would say the main thing here is just that no one's touching PII because we just get rid of it as soon as we can.
Yeah.
And that really reduces the footprint of kind of the footprint of touching sensitive information. And then in the aggregate, it like, when you have all of that data, like you can see a lot of trends, but you can't say like, Joshua downloaded your software and, he's living in this location because like we just don't have it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There are some things you have already worked with, which actually solve this issue, and that's a great thing. So there's another question. Are there any alternatives or competitors for Scarf, which you have seen
For Scarf,
or which you have come across? Yeah.
I mean, I don't think so. I think this idea about usage metrics for open source is fairly novel, and so I'm not aware of any competitors to that. I mean, in the long run, there's several companies that are kind of around the commercializing open source. So I think that like the untrained eye might see that as a competitor, but I think people I think we in the space know that open source is massive, and there's so many ways to commercialize a project that like there's room in this space for everyone. And I look at this as a much more collaborative thing than as a competitive thing. But I think like the most established company in this space is probably Tidelift in terms of kind of funneling money into maintainers, and they have had some success with doing that, which is really exciting. And that, as their name suggests, is kind of makes things easier for everyone. So yeah, I don't think that there's a whole lot of competition right now.
Right. Okay. So I think these are the questions we had, and if you have any questions,
Cool.
You can drop in the Q&A section. You can find in the right panel. So if you want to share anything, or maybe if you want to add any points to what Avi mentioned, you can use public chats. So we can take up and we can continue the discussion even after this podcast. So this will be posted and there will be a blog written on this. So we can continue this discussion because this is really interesting, and this is something revolutionary what Avi and his team has built. So the discussion will be prolonging as well. So I don't want to take much of Avi's time because he really woke up today morning and he was like, I am just feeling a little bad. So, but still, I really appreciate that you came in the early morning and you attended this. So I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you for
And so before we close and sum up about everything which we are trying to help, is basically, as I mentioned, usage metrics and how you can use it for improving the community health and how you can customize the whole experience for each group of people. Like, it's obvious that everyone likes different chunks of your software or of your tool, and you can customize the whole experience for different kind of people based on how they use it. And that really justifies the whole explanation of why Scarf is built. And is there any final message you want to share with the maintainers, especially about how they can leverage the whole idea of usage metrics and gradually how they can maintain a healthy community with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think at a high level, I would basically just say, like, do what you can to be able to make data-driven decisions about your project. It can help you prioritize your time most effectively. It can help you build a strong community. It can help you, find more people to join your community. And there's many approaches to doing this. I think Scarf and otherwise, there's so many ways to try to get at various pieces of this data. And so I think really just to this idea is so new that like just making any kind of effort to go grab it, I think will make huge improvements for your community and for helping to like normalize this as a practice that everyone can start to do. I think there's really there's the social acceptance of this as a whole, that like if we as maintainers decide that this is something that it will be a best practice, that's going to benefit all of us as maintainers to be able to to do this right out the gate, as soon as you start your project, to be tracking what's going on. I think that's the main set of things that I would say. And if you have projects that you'd like you have questions that you'd like some answers to about the usage of your project, just get in touch with us. We're happy to help in any way that we can. You can get it set up with Scarf in just about 5 minutes. So it's pretty quick and it's all free to use. So drop us a line. We're all happy. The team is happy to help.
Great. And thanks for sharing. And I think we'll wrap up this session and really appreciate your efforts in building the sustainable business model. And definitely we will also, I think we'll be also having you on like Scarf integrated here. So we are looking forward for that. And thanks for all the attendees for tuning into this podcast. So we'll be sharing a lot of things after the podcast as well. So stay tuned on our aviyel.com and you can sign up. You can check the events platform where we are helping bunch of tools to host and talk about it, like what are the reasons they built and what are the use cases, because these are the tools which are not talked about in general, like when it comes to any big media. So what we are trying to do is to help these projects to get the right set of people to understand what's going on. So that's the whole idea of what we are doing with Aviyel, with the events. So that's the whole, the intention of bringing in such great people like Avi. And we also connected with Justin. And thanks, Justin, for chipping Avi into this conversation. Because of that, he came into the picture. So that's how Justin is a great sustainer, open source sustainer. He helps a lot of projects to get a lot of, how they can be sustainable in future. So Justin works with great projects. So that's how we got in touch. So anything you want to share finally, Avi, before we close to all the people?
Let's see. I think the main thing that I would share is that we are going to be very soon launching native Scarf gateway support for Python packages. So if anyone out there has a Python package, maybe on PyPy, that you want to get some better data on, we'll have native support for that very soon. So we would love to hear from you. We have a Slack community, so you can get in touch there, and we'd be happy to help get you started.
Great. So I'll be sharing all the relevant links in the event description. So you will be having all the access which he just mentioned. So any update with the Scarf or with the events will be updated in this same link. So make sure you check that. And thanks again, Avi, and thanks to all the attendees. So we are hoping for more and more fruitful sessions with you. Maybe we can share a quick demo of how you can set up a Scarf and like maybe something like that. So we'll have something great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be good. Cool. Thank you, everyone. And sorry about my voice
problem.
again.
It was really great to hear.
But I've still been happy to be here. So cool.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Take care, everyone.